Mic check 1 2 1 2. It's the Y2K Collector coming at you on a Friday night. It's been one hell of a week, folks, but we've made it to Friday. And you know what? This week I spent a lot of time talking about the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 4. I just did a lot of PlayStation talking this week. Just because, we're seeing some of these generations hang around a little bit longer than they need to. And we've already known this, but there's been a steady resurgence in retro gaming. And it's all because, honestly, people are bored with the current generation. If I were to say so myself, I think we're pretty much bored. We're getting a lot of remakes, we're getting a lot of remasters. No real innovation. Games take longer to actually start up and play. And a lot of people are just turning to PC gaming as opposed to console gaming altogether. The luster, the desire to crack open a new console has been lost, I think, on Gen 9. And I don't know if it's going to get better moving forward. But in the midst of all this conversation about generations and consoles and PS2, PS3, and PS4, I've heard a lot of people and I've seen a lot of comments in reference to the PS2 generation. And I've heard I'm seeing two camps. I'm not really seeing many comments about the GameCube, because remember, in that generation, in the generation of the PS2, you still had the big four: the Xbox, the PS2, the GameCube, and then of course the Dreamcast. Now, Xbox held its own, but I don't think anyone considers the Xbox, the original Xbox, the GOAT of that generation. And I know for sure no one thinks the GameCube is the GOAT of that generation. However, the two big studs, the two big champions of that generation were the Dreamcast and the PlayStation 2. And you have two separate camps. I feel like in a lot of ways, like the PlayStation 2 is kind of like they might be like the Yankees, and the Dreamcast might be like the Mets. Now, there are not as many Mets fans as there are Yankees fans, but Mets fans are die hard. If you live in New York and you grew up in New York, you will know that those Mets fans, they mean business about their Mets. Don't talk smack about their Mets. And when it comes to the Yankees, there's just so many Yankees fans. It's like a dime a dozen, right? But it doesn't take away from the prestige and the massive history behind the Yankees franchise. And that's kind of how I look at these two systems. They have, like, the Dreamcast has a cult following that is never going to go away. For me, the Dreamcast was the main console that I played throughout high school. And even as an adult, when I started getting back into game collecting, one of the first collections that I built up was my Dreamcast collection, because I think some of the games on this console are unmatched. I think what it was for the time that it was released is just completely iconic. And the best part about it is that they're still making games for the Dreamcast to this day. Like, there's still new Dreamcast games coming out all the time. The homebrew scene for the Dreamcast is amazing. And I love it. We're seeing games get ported to the system. I think it's just a really, really great time to be a lover of the Dreamcast. But the PlayStation 2 is definitely no slouch. I mean, easily the PlayStation outsold the Dreamcast without blinking an eye. And for sure, the overall library of the PlayStation 2 far surpasses the Dreamcast. I mean, there's way more games that you can play. I think in a lot of ways there's a lot more diversity on the PlayStation 2. But I feel like when it comes to the graphics on both of these systems, they're pretty much neck and neck. Now, it depends on who you ask. Some people will prefer the bright, vibrant, deep, rich colors that you get on the Sega Dreamcast, because the Dreamcast did just have some amazing work there. But I think on the other hand, you will have a camp that will appreciate just the overall graphics of the PlayStation 2. I think they were a little more cleaner for the time, less boxy, less like more detailed. However, usually the games on the PlayStation 2 were a little darker. It was a little bit more of a dim type of feel, or a little bit dim lighting on those games. And then the games on the PlayStation 2, a lot of their adventure games always had this kind of like faded look to them. You notice it when you play games like Shadow of the Colossus and things like that. They just kind of tend to have this like faded hue to them. I preferred the vibrant colors of the Sega Dreamcast personally. From a graphics perspective, I played way more Dreamcast games growing up than I did PlayStation 2, but it's nothing to sneeze at. And now here, decades later, literally decades later, you have two camps, and you have one camp that says the PlayStation 2 is God tier, especially because of the modding. I guess you can do modifications to it to be able to play other games on it and things like that. But my question to the channel is, let's say you can't do any modifications to either of these systems, you can't make any changes, and you have to just play both of these systems using their original libraries. Now, you can have any game in the library, or every game in their original library for that matter, but you can't mod either of these systems. You can't play burnt games, you can't play homebrew games. You have to just stick to the games that were originally released for both of these consoles, and all of the original equipment that was used for both of these consoles. Which game in 2024, which console in 2024 would truly be the God tier console? Which console would truly be the console that dominates and decimates all? And just to provide a little bit more context, I'm only talking about gaming, because I often hear a lot of reference to the PS2 being a lot of people's first DVD player. We don't care about that in this debate. We don't care about that in this conversation. We are strictly talking gaming, right? Which was the better system for gaming? And I'm including all accessories. So think of all the accessories that were out there and available for the PlayStation 2. Think of all of the accessories and everything that was available for the Dreamcast. And let me know down in the comments, which console do you think was truly God tier, and is still God tier now in 2024, and which one provides a much more satisfying and gratifying gameplay experience? I'm interested to know your thoughts and comments down below. Friday nights are always great nights for an awesome showdown, and tonight we have one between the Dreamcast and the PS2. I'm interested to know your thoughts. It's the Y2K Collector. Hopefully you have a great weekend. Take it easy.